The emperor and all the others were very amused at his daughter's wit. Deiphobus saw that Trnt was angry with him, and so he did not dare show himself out of shame. When the emperor heard of the glorious battle from the others, but not from Deiphobus, he told the princess, "Since I've had no news from Deiphobus, I fear that he may be dead." When Stephanie heard this, she burst into tears. On their return to the castle of Malveigh, she sent a man to find out what had happened to Deiphobus, along with a letter that said, "My love for you demands that I have news from you, for I have heard that you may be dead. So I beg you, my lord, come here quickly. And if something has happened to you, I want to die with you." When Deiphobus saw this letter from his lady, he was overjoyed. He took the letter to Trnt's room. When Trnt had read it, he sent for the messenger and asked him about the emperor and the virtuous princess. And the messenger told him everything that had happened in the camp, and how the princess had gone armed into the Moors' tents and captured a black, and that she was holding him under guard, to show him to your lordship as soon as she can see you. Trnt was very pleased, and he ordered Deiphobus to go to his majesty the emperor. And Deiphobus rode off very quickly. When he reached the castle of Malveigh, he went directly to the emperor. The entire castle heard that Deiphobus had come, and the maidens quickly went to see him, especially Stephanie. They found him in the emperor's chamber, talking about the battle. The emperor how many men were killed, and Deiphobus said, "I don't know the number of Turks who are dead, but from here to the city of St. George you can't travel on the main road, it's too full of corpses. But of our forces I can give you an exact account, because the captain has had all their bodies gathered and buried. We found the Duke of Macedonia dead from a lance wound, and the Duke of Babylon, the Marquis of Ferrara, and the Marquis of Gustas, Count Polygamus. These are the main ones. There is also many other knights who were killed, among them the High Constable. In all, 1,234 men died." The emperor was very pleased with Trnt's accomplishments, and did not know how to reward him. Deiphobus remained there, pretending he was ill, and the emperor had him taken care of as well as he would have his own daughter. Trnt stayed in the camp, guarding it well. Meanwhile, the Sultan and all those who had escaped with him went into the city of Belpuig. The Sultan remained there, feeling safe, but for 2 weeks he kept to his room, crying over the battle they had lost and lamenting the death of King Cappadocia. But still he knew nothing of the death of the king of Egypt, and he was anxious to hear any news. Cyprus of Paterno said to him, "Sir, does your lordship want me to go? If I can talk to my friend, I'll know everything there is to know." The Sultan begged him very much, in front of all who were there, to go. Under his juba, Cyprus wore a tunic of white damask that Trnt had given him with the cross of St. George embroidered on it. When he was on the road and the Moors couldn't see him, he took off the juba and sat on it while he rode. When the Christian spies along the road saw him, they thought that he was one of their own, and they did not stop him. In the city he asked where the captain's lodgings were. The captain was very glad to see him, and asked what news there was. "Sir," said Cyprus of Paterno, "they found 103,700 men missing from their ranks, who have either been killed or taken prisoner. If you had pursued them, you would have taken them all, for their horses were too tired to go on. They had to stop halfway along the road to Belpuig and spend the night. Many were wounded, many were fatigued, and many died that night, since there was no doctors to attend them. The cold entered their wounds, and there they died." "Do you have any other news?" "Yes, sir," said Cyprus of Paterno. 7 ships have come from Turkey, loaded with wheat, barley, and other foods, and they say for a certainty that the Grand Carmany is on them with 50,000 soldiers and horsemen, and that he is bringing his daughter to give her as a wife to the Sultan, and that in his company is the King of Upper India." "Have they unloaded these 7 ships yet?" asked Trnt. "No, sir," said Cypres. "The wind has been against them, and they haven't been able to make port." They spoke of many other things, and after Cypres of Paterno had returned to the Sultan, he told him about the death of the king of Egypt, and there was great wailing among the Moors, for he was much loved. Trnt took a man with him who knew the land well, and which secret roads they could travel to avoid difficulties. When they were in sight of the sea, they saw the city of Belpuig at the top of a high mountain, and the ships, their sails turned to and fro in the wind, unable to make port. Trnt returned quickly, and learned that the emperor, along with all the barons from Sicily, had gone out to conquer the many villas and castles nearby. Then he and the Duke of Pera left with a party of soldiers, and he left the rest with the Marquis of St. George as their captain. When Trnt was near the castle of Malveigh, he learned that the princess had remained inside with her maidens, and with Deiphobus as their protector. So he sent Hippolytus inside with a message. When Hippolytus was before the princess, he knelt and kissed her hand, and said, "Your Majesty, my lord sends me to beg your highness to give him safe conduct, so that he may come and go from here freely." The princess replied, "Oh, you knight! Doesn't the good captain know that we are all under his captaincy and his care?" Then Hippolytus stood and embraced all the maidens, and don't think that Parmavida was displeased to see Hippolytus. Meanwhile, the princess took pen and ink and wrote, "With my own hand I sign this document. I will in no way limit your freedom to come and go as you wish. September 7th, in the castle of Malveigh." When he had the document in hand, Trnt quickly went up to the castle, where he found the princess in a great hall. She took the Duke of Pera by one hand and Trnt by the other, and sat between them, and they spoke of many things. They talked about how the emperor had been taking villas and castles, and they decided to go and help the emperor in the morning. And the princess said, "If you go to where the emperor is, I'm going too." And she had them bring out her prisoner, saying, "Do you think that when I've been in hard-fought battles the way you have, I don't know how to take prisoners from among our cruel enemies?" And saying these things, they went in to dine. But the princess ate very little, for she could not keep her eyes off Trnt. The duke began to talk to the lady of the castle, and to Widow Repose, telling them about the battles they had won under Trnt's leadership. And Widow Repose's love of Trnt grew even stronger, but she was afraid to show it. While they were talking, Parmavida came up, and sitting at Trnt's feet, she said, "My lord and captain, no one loves you as I do. I feel compassion for you, for none of these ladies has told you to lay down your weapons. In faith, that shirt you are wearing is well trampled. I saw it being put on and taken off, well perfumed, and now I see it all torn and smelling of iron and steel." The princess said, "Give me that hand that has not had the mercy of the deaths of the Moorish kings, or has not had mercy on the deaths of the Moorish kings, our enemies." Stephanie took his hand and placed it in the princess's lap. When she saw it on her knees, she bent over and kissed it. Trnt said, "If your highness would give me leave to kiss your hands whenever I wished, oh, how fortunate I'd be, and I would be even more so if I could kiss your feet and your legs." The princess took his hands again and said, "From now on, captain, I want your hands to do as they will with me. That is your right." She quickly got up, because they had spent the greater part of the night there, and so that the duke and the others would have no reason to gossip, they went with her to her room, where she bid them all a good night, and the duke and Trnt slept in the same bed. The following morning the trumpets blew, and they all armed themselves and mounted their horses. The princess wanted to go with them, and they rode until they found the emperor, who was attacking a well-fortified city. With Trnt's men helping, they entered the villa and killed and made prisoners of many. The following day the emperor held council to decide where they should attack next. The captain spoke and said, "Sire, it would be better if your highness would go with the barons of Sicily back to the palace with all the prisoners we've taken. The duke and I will take charge of guarding and conquering the nearby cities and villas, and your majesty can send us the supplies we need." When they were back in the castle, the emperor summoned Trnt, and then had the princess and the other maidens come, and he said, "Captain, since fortune has been so contrary to our high constable, the Count of Batunia, who is dead, who do you think we should choose as our next constable?" Trnt knelt and said, "My lord, If your majesty would be pleased to give the office of High Constable to Deiphobus, I would consider it a great favor." "I will do as you wish," said the emperor. "Because of my affection for you, and because of his many merits, from this moment on I grant to Deiphobus the high office of Constable, and to you I give the county of Saint Angel, which I take from my daughter and bestow upon you. Tomorrow I will have a celebration where you will take the title of Count." Trnt replied, "Sire, I give you infinite thanks for doing me such a great honor, but I will accept it only if I can give the title in turn to Deiphobus, my closest relative. It makes no difference to me what you will do with it afterwards, as long as I have offered it and you have accepted it." Trnt knelt and kissed the emperor's hand and feet for his honor. The morning of the next day the emperor wanted mass held in the middle of the meadow, and he wanted Deiphobus between himself and his daughter. After mass the emperor put the ring on Deiphobus's hand and kissed him on the mouth. Then all the trumpets began to peal very loudly, and a king of arms cried out in a loud voice, "This is the most eminent and virtuous knight, Count of Saint Angel and High Constable of the Greek Empire." Afterwards the dances and festivities began, and all day long the princess did nothing but dance with the High Constable. When it was time to eat, the emperor had his High Constable sit at his right, and the duke sat on his left, while the princess sat to the right of the constable. Trnt acted as steward, since he was giving the celebration. The ladies ate at other tables, and the barons and knights ate at their right. Next were all the soldiers, and that day all the prisoners ate at tables to honor the celebration. Trnt even had the horses eating barley mixed with bread. When the dinner was half finished, Trnt summoned the kings of arms, and heralds, and gave them 1,000 ducats. And all the trumpets were pealing, and they came before the emperor's table and cried out, "Largesse! Largesse!" After the meal the repast was held with many sugared dainties. Then they all rode, armed and holding the constable's banners, jousting before the emperor. They held a beautiful display of arms without getting hurt, and they went like this up to the place where the Sultan usually held camp, and came back very happily. When they thought it was time to have the evening meal, they held the festivities in that same place, and they were very well served with many varied dishes. During the entire meal, as Trnt was serving it, he seemed very sad. The princess had him come over to her, and she whispered in his ear, "Tell me, Trnt, why are you so sad? Your face shows that something is wrong. Tell me, what is it, please?" "My lady, I have so many troubles that they could not be counted. My life is worth nothing. Your Highness is leaving tomorrow, and I will be left behind in great sadness, knowing that I will not see you." "It is only right," said the princess, "that anyone who causes misfortune should suffer for it. You are the one who brought it on. You are the one who brought it on. You advised the emperor to go back to the city with all the prisoners. I've never seen such bad advice given by any man who was in love. But if you would like me to pretend I am sick for 2 or 3 weeks, I will do it because of my love for you, and I'm sure the emperor will wait because of his love for me." "But what will we do," said Trnt, "with all these prisoners we have here? I can't find any way to relieve my pain. Sometimes I feel like taking poison or dying a sudden death to escape this anguish." "Don't do any such thing, Trnt," said the princess. "Go talk to Stephanie and see if she can do something to help that won't be difficult for me and will bring you relief." Trnt went quickly to Stephanie and told her his troubles, and they and the constable agreed that when everybody was resting and the maidens were asleep, the 2 men would come to the chamber, and there they would decide what they could do to give release to their passion.